Good evening. On May 25th, 2020, the world stopped. The video was released of Mr. George Floyd being strangled to death by Officer George Chauvin. Chauvin's knee was intentionally placed on Mr. Floyd's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds after an arrest for using a $20 counterfeit bill. This moment was a defining moment in the lives of many. Similar to how older generations felt when Medgar Evers, Dr. King, President Kennedy, Malcolm X, and other key figures in the civil rights movement were assassinated. Mr. Floyd's death was a wake-up call to the world regarding how African Americans are treated by law enforcement officers. Or was it? Today, the members of the Healthy Heart Nation's Justice Team discuss some key issues and takeaways from this senseless murder and verdict. Your moderator today is the Healthy Heart Nation's Justice Team Chair, Devonna Roseberry, who is an attorney and general counsel for Healthy Heart Nation, as well as founder of the Roseberry Law Firm, LLC. Attorney Roseberry brings more than 17 years of legal experience, including specialties in the areas of juvenile law, adoption, family law, and business organization. Welcome, Devonna.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This evening, we have the pleasure of having some of our justice ambassadors joining us this evening. And the first ambassador that we'll bring in is Attorney Gidget Johnson.
Hi.
Hi, Gidget.
Thank you all for inviting me to join today.
Thank you. Will you introduce yourself for us?
Sure. I am Gidget Johnson. I am an attorney in the Atlanta, Georgia area, East Metro. I've been practicing law as of tomorrow will be 19 years, and I'm a criminal defense lawyer to the heart of my core, and I also practice family law and juvenile law, and so I'm honored to be here. Thank you all for thinking enough of me to ask me to be a part of this organization as well as to participate in this panel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And next we have Attorney Kaylee Wills.
Good evening.
Good evening, Attorney Wills. Will you give us a short introduction?
Yes, ma'am. So I'm a Special Assistant Attorney General for the Department of Family and Children Services in Rockdale County. I've been practicing in that area of law since 2016, and prior to that, I was a public defender upon graduating in 2012. So thank you for having me here today.
Thank you for being here. We also have with us another Justice Ambassador with Healthy Heart Nation, Sergeant Daryl Smith.
Well, good evening, everyone, and Devonna and panel, thank you for having me. I'm a sergeant with Baltimore City Police Department. I've been on the police department for 27 years. I've served everywhere from patrol to narcotics to child abuse to domestic violence and so forth. So I'm glad to be here to help out any way I can.
Thank you so much for joining us, Sergeant Smith. We definitely appreciate all of you all for taking out your time to join us today and to speak on this very, very impactful subject. I'm going to jump right into it because I know everyone's time is valuable, but this is also a topic that needs to be discussed. The first question I have for each of you that I would like for you to address is, how did the George Floyd murder affect you personally and then professionally?
Who are you going to start with? Gidget, maybe?
Sure. I will start with Ms. Johnson, Attorney Johnson.
Well, personally, I have a Black son, and who's an athlete, a college athlete, and thank God he was home from school at the time when this happened. And so, as a mother of a black child, I'm already overprotected. But and I think being a lawyer doesn't really help that. But having and being able to watch the life be snuffed out of a person, knowing that it could happen to my own child or to my brother or to any man or woman, to any of us, because the fact of the matter is that our lives are just don't have the value that other people's lives do. And so as a mother, it really shook me to the core. Professionally, I've just continued to do what I do anyway, one case at a time, to apply pressure where pressure is needed, to speak boldly about issues that are before the court, and to be a voice for those people who don't have a voice.
Thank you. And now I'm going to go to Sergeant Smith. How did the murder affect you professionally and personally?
Anytime a murder happens, it's sad. I mean, we can all agree on that. But I think it affected me a little differently than it affected most of you all, because unfortunately, I see young Black men shot and killed in the streets far too often. And the problem for me is we riot, we protest when someone dies in police custody. But I know in Baltimore, with the exception of a few years, the 27 years I've been on the department, we've had at least 300 homicides. And you don't find people protesting that. So it was sad to see that the officer was so brazen, so I don't know, he just didn't seem to have a care for Mr. Floyd. But at the same time, I wish that we would have panels and discussions about the Black on Black murders that take place all across the country.
All right. Thank you for your input. And Attorney Wills?
For me, I mean, it was shocking that something like that could happen, and it was so brazen. There were so many people who were witness to his murder in person. I'm so happy that that young lady had her phone out and did video the incident so that we all could take witness, so that the narrative could not be changed. We all saw that what happened. Personally, you know, my parents are very active in the community. They always have been. We are not from the South, and my dad is personally, he's been harassed by police officers in Newton County. So to know that that is happening, you know, for me, it's just urging everyone to have cameras. You know, I'm glad that there were witnesses, but again, just personally, it was very, very shocking. Professionally, it definitely made me want to be more active, get out there, protest, because state actors cannot behave in that manner.
All right. And so, you know, how do you guys feel that society has changed since George Floyd was murdered? And we'll start with you, Sergeant Smith.
I don't know that society has changed. I think maybe when you come from the angle of police brutality, it shed more light on that, and I think it should. But as far as the things that go on day to day on the streets that don't get the same news coverage, it hasn't changed much. We do need some type of police reform, and that is taking place across the country. But I hear people say defund the police and things of that nature. And I think most people, you have no idea of the type of element that is out there on the streets and the type of people that would do things to you and your families if it were not for the police patrolling 24 hours a day. Now, and I think when you say defund the police and let's go on different, avenues, I guess you can look at it like, well, yes, we're tired of seeing the police brutality, particularly when it comes to Black and brown males, people, I should say.
Right.
But on the flip side of that, see, we have these discussions at work, and sometimes we close the door. And as Black guys and white guys, and regardless of rank, we kind of let it all hang out. And we talk and we discuss things, especially with, they'll ask questions, Black Lives Matter and all this. And it comes down to a lot of people ask this question. Everybody wants Black people Black people want white people to treat them a certain way or look at them a certain way or not do X, Y, and Z as they should as a human being. But it seems like on the streets, Black people don't respect and love each other. And when you get that question, how should we respond as Black people?
Gidget, you look like you want to get in here on that one.
Absolutely do. I absolutely do. The difference, sir, between actors for the state and a defendant or a criminal accused in murdering is they get arrested, right? They are entitled to due process, right? If you all are investigating the person that kills to address the Black on Black crime, that person is being arrested. Y'all are hunting them down. You're investigating your crime, and you're bringing them to court, and they are to have their day in court, right? But when a police officer snuffs the life out of a person with the whole world watching, right? That's a problem. Mm-hmm. And he did not allow George Floyd to have due process. And so we're not trying to minimize Black on Black crime. As a people, we need to do better. Like that's just that my son said to me, he came back from Miami just the other day, and he said when he got off the flight, he's walking in the airport, and he said, just as a people, we gotta do better. Right. Because I suppose that it was just a ratchet flight. I don't know. Right. Mm-hmm. But as a people, there are things that we need to address. But the criminal people that commit crimes when they are caught, they have their day in court.
Right.
And they are entitled to it, a day in court. But if they don't make it to court, if they don't make it off the street, if you have police officers who are not trained, police officers who don't hold each other accountable, and I understand that y'all have meetings, that you let it all hang out, is what you just said, right? That when y'all are in closed corners, you let it all hang out, as you should. But there are some people that are on law enforcement who are not doing what they are supposed to do. And we expect that when y'all are in those meetings, letting it all hang out, that you hold those people accountable, that you say, we need to address this. We need to address your lack of knowledge about the culture of Black people. We act a different way, just in general. We typically don't act like other people act, okay? And that does not mean that it's a criminal offense just because we might be hood. I'm entitled to be hood if I want to be hood, right? And so that's not a crime.
Right.
Crime. And a $20 fake bill that you could get anywhere, any of us might end up with a fake $20 bill and be in the store. It's just not worth the person's life. And it is certainly not worth all of us being exposed to the trauma that we were exposed to having to watch it not only when it's happening, right? But also to watch it over and over and over again. And we're not trying to say that there aren't good police officers.
Right.
But there are some that need to be brought to court, just like the person that shoots the black man that shoots the black man. We're not saying that. That's not
isn't the police officer in Minneapolis, isn't he being brought to court and he's going through the system just as if it were a criminal who killed another individual?
That is a rarity.
As he should.
That is a rarity.
I think what we have to be careful. Are we asking for justice or are we asking for vengeance?
What is justice?
Because
I'll take a little
it's two different things.
I'll take a little vengeance personally, right? If it was my kid, I would certainly want vengeance. I don't care about justice because I work in this justice system, and justice is sometimes nowhere to be found.
Well, to me, I don't understand that question because he murdered someone in cold blood in broad daylight,
and he's going to prison.
Exactly. So I don't understand your question.
He's going to prison, but will he stay in prison? Right?
Yeah. Yes. We do not. He has not been sentenced, so I don't understand that question.
He's going to prison.
He committed a crime. Well, he hasn't been sentenced yet, but he committed a crime in broad daylight. So I don't understand that difference. Like to me, he's being brought to justice, and he went through due process as he should. Yeah. All police officers should who act in that manner. And we're not talking about self-defense. We're not talking about a different situation. We're talking about George Floyd. And
right.
Many other stories that have been brought to the forefront since that time, and with police brutality, cover-ups, things of that nature, where there weren't cameras, where there were lies told on police reports and things of that. And we know that happens. Right. It's not to say that happens in every single situation, but to me, to bring up black on black violence in comparison in this context, I don't see the relevancy, because we're talking about state actors who are trained, who know better, who are surrounded by other people who know better, who are also trained, who should also be telling other people or reporting their fellow officers when things aren't happening as they should, according to protocol and procedure. When that happens and there's a breakdown, that's a problem. That is a problem.
See, what you all fail to realize, 90+% of the people, 95+% of the people that I work with and for, or who work under me, are good, decent, hardworking people who go out every day and they get it done.
We believe that.
And so, I don't think that anybody's saying that that's not the case.
Right,
I don't think anybody's saying that's not the case. And I agree with you. There is. We do need to discuss black on black crime. There are many topics that we can discuss. We are here today to focus on George Floyd, his murder that the whole world saw because of where we were last year. We were all in front of our televisions and in front of on social media constantly because of the pandemic. And so the whole world happened to see this one. And so it was right there in our faces, and it affected I think, the majority of individuals, it affected us. And so that's what we're discussing today. I definitely don't think anyone's saying that all police officers, are bad. Right. No one here believes that. But, I definitely agree that there is a need for a conversation regarding black on black crime as well.
If I could go address the defund the police, like I think the term is misleading, right? Defund the police. A lot of what is happening, what is advocated for in defunding the police is that you have to actually we need a mental health response team, right?
Right.
Instead of taking all of the funds that is allowed in a budget or allotted in a budget, put some of that money towards a mental health response team. If I call in because a family member is in a mental health crisis, I don't need the police to respond. I need someone other than the police to respond. I just had a call the other day from a client that in a case that's a teenager, 17 years old. his parents have gone through and matriculated through the court system before, because his mental health needs are such that they can't always meet his needs in the community, right? And so sometimes you have to go through the court in order to get what you need because of insurance problems, right? So to cut through the chase to get to the mental health facility that you need to get to, you got to have a court order to get there, right? And so that particular kid, they had a problem that's going to happen over and over and over again. Why? Because medications plateau, and so they're not as effective. Once you take them for so long, they don't work as well, and so and there's no way to really gauge when that's going to happen. And so sometimes you need intervention. You call in to 911, and who comes? The police comes. And what do? They arrest a 17-year-old that the parents don't want to have arrested, right? The parents don't want to have arrested, and they just need him to get the mental health treatment that they need. And so the response is inadequate. They charge him with a crime when really he just needs some help. And that happens over and over again. And so that's where the defund the police comes from. It's not a take away all funds. All police officers are bad. Like, nobody is saying that. What we're saying is that there are some changes that need to be made. Police officers need to be held accountable when they act out of order, right? And just like the rest of us, if we act out of order, we're going to jail. Same thing should happen. Not just in the exception, but each and every time. If we're not going to get the benefit of the doubt, then y'all don't get the benefit of the doubt. Snuff life out of somebody on TV, go to jail. That's what happened this time. But does it happen each and every time? That's a no. That's a no, Officer Smith. It's a no.
Well, Devonna said we're focusing on George Floyd. And so the question I would ask you and everyone else listening is this. Perhaps, and I'm only saying perhaps, that George Floyd's murder is maybe an example of how America views us as a people. Absolutely. And maybe they view us less than human. And so therefore, to put your knee on someone's neck, even though you see that person is struggling to breathe and then they stop breathing and it doesn't give you cause for alarm, maybe that's in part. And so that's why I always go to the black on black crime. It's not the same thing. The other the other attorney indicated that you have two criminals, one may kill the other, and then you have an agent of the state who kills another. It's two different things. I hope everybody understands that. It's two total different things, because we're paid to protect and serve. And criminals, they go out and do whatever it is they're going to do. My argument, after walking through alleys and helping put up crime scene tape and seeing young black men day after day after day with bullets in their head and so forth, my thing is, this hasn't changed in my 27 years. So maybe it's time for us to embrace one another, stop looking for outside entities to come and love and embrace us, and let's love each other. That's my angle when I say the black on black crime.
Right. So, if I could speak to that, I think that, again, I think it's still two separate issues. I don't think that, proximity dictates crime and criminality and who are victims and who perpetrate crimes. So to say black on black crime, that is a red herring argument as far as I'm concerned. White people kill white people, Hispanics kill Hispanics. Black on blacks, that's the only time we talk about black on black or one race killing the same race. I think that, yes, there are things that we can discuss as far as within the black community, as far as healing, coming together, doing better. But aside from that, it doesn't give anyone the excuse to see us as animals, treat us as animals, to treat us as less than. And what happened with George Floyd, what continues to happen, Dante Wright, Mike Ferguson, Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin, Breonna. I mean, we can name. There's so many names that we have to name. And so it's not about what Black people have done to deserve any of that treatment. At the end of the day, we don't deserve to be treated like that, regardless of what's going on in our communities. We deserve to be protected, and we deserve the same respect that every other community receives.
So then let me ask you this question.
That's what was shocking to the world when they saw that video with George.
How would you have the police respond? And I'm not being funny and I'm not being facetious at all. Because I've taken several people from my church, people that I play golf with, my college buddies, and through the years, I've taken them on what's called a ride along, where they've ridden in a patrol car with me for a couple hours. And people have the same viewpoints as that you all are expressing. But after they ride with me for a few hours, they kind of summarize it and say, nobody has a chance in this community. The police don't have a chance, and the people that live here don't have a chance. It's just waiting for something to explode, because you have a whole lot of people living in a small area with too few resources, and you call the police to come in to, quote unquote, keep law and order, but it's not a winning formula.
Well, they have those resources. That is the question. Why don't they have those resources?
Well, just in getting back to what the question is, like, how would we want them to respond? I think, we would want them to respond to us the way they would respond to someone of a different color. I mean, what we are noticing and what we're seeing is that when they respond to Blacks in similar situations or lesser situations, and I'm speaking in generalities, Blacks get killed. White people get arrested. White people get arraigned. White people, have a different approach to the way law enforcement interacts with whites versus how they interact with Blacks. We want the opportunity to go to court. We don't want to have to go to the morgue. And so we're seeing a difference in the way that Blacks are treated in the criminal situations versus the way others are treated in criminal situations. So how do you explain that?
I think that is fair, that is correct, and it's the answer that I would give. I have two sons. One is old enough, he drives, and unfortunately, I have to have the talk with him. And his daddy is a sergeant with the police department, but I still have to give him an wisdom on how, if the police stop you, this is how you conduct yourself. Because at the end of the day,
I'm sorry, not to cut you off. I'm gonna let you finish, but that's actually the next question. I just want to kind of go into our next question, which is, how should African Americans respond when they are engaged with the police? So I'm gonna let you, since you were already answering that question, as it relates to what you tell your sons, I'm gonna kind of go into that one, Sergeant Smith.
Okay, so, and I please don't. I hope you all don't get angry at this, and just hear what I'm saying. You all remember the individual, I forget his name, in Atlanta at the Wendy's. He fell asleep in the drive-thru. They called the police. They got into a scuffle, and he got the officer's taser, and the officer ended up shooting him, right? Now, see, this is the problem. If he would have cooperated, they were putting handcuffs on him, he would be alive today. Now, some people get mad when we say that, but it's the truth. And so to answer Devonna's question, how should we act, or how should Black people respond? Cooperate. Have your day in court. And then a lot of times, see, in the past, a white person would come to the station to complain about an officer did X, Y, and Z, and I would give them their options. And one of the options is contact internal affairs because this happened, and they'll open an investigation, and this is what will take place. And the white person will say, okay, thank you very much, Sergeant Smith, and they'll go on their way. I've told Black people the same thing, and all they did was cuss me out and say, y'all not going to do anything, and they leave. All I'm saying is at least give the system a chance to work and do what you have to do to stay alive and go home to your family. You can hire an attorney.
The system, sorry.
But the question is, how should they respond? Well, number one, I want you to stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
And
it doesn't always work though. But that just doesn't always work. That doesn't always work to respond. And so what? He took off running, so what? That there is no threat to the police if he takes off running. If you already know somebody's identity and you're trying to arrest them and they take off running, right? You can then go arrest them later. You can issue a warrant for their arrest later, and then they're charged with a misdemeanor running from the police, obstruction of an officer, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not the same. That is not a death penalty offense.
Well, have you ever been in the alley with somebody in the middle of the night?
I don't hang out in the middle of.
Have you ever been in the alley in the middle of the night?
I go to work and I go home, but I should be able to go out.
No. But
hang out in the alley in the middle of the night if I choose to.
No, the question I'm asking: have you ever dealt with the criminal element in the middle of the alley at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning? Because what you're saying, how the police should respond. And I'm not being disrespectful to you at all, but you don't know what you're talking about when it comes to that point. Because when you're in the middle of the alley or the middle of the street and you're dealing with somebody and they're wanted for a shooting, a homicide, a rape, or something of that nature, and that person does not want to go to jail, that person's going to do anything and everything not to go to jail. And for you to,
that wasn't the case.
But
that wasn't the case. He wanted chicken nuggets and he fell asleep. And then he ran. So he had no warrants to our knowledge. He was running away.
He pulled the officer's taser and pointed the officer's taser at the officer. And in the state of Georgia, a taser is listed as a lethal weapon.
So this is my question, Sergeant Smith. Though, so you're telling me that if that person in the drive-through was a white person,
I can't tell you that. I can't tell you that.
Exactly. That's the point.
What is the likelihood of that based on the previous experience and how Black people as a whole are viewed by law enforcement? I mean, for us
how Black people are viewed.
No difference.
It's not just law enforcement. How when you walk into a courthouse as an attorney, when you walk into a corporate boardroom, Black people are viewed differently than white people. So we can't just say it's law enforcement. It's Black people in America.
Okay, but we can't.
That's called racism. That's called racism. So
but we can't say that it is also a situation with law enforcement. Is that essentially what you're saying? That law enforcement also has those biases?
I'm sure, yes.
Okay.
And that's the issue. We've seen many videos that came out, not just after George Floyd with Black people being victims, but also white people toting their guns, shooting guns, shooting weaponry at police officers, and they're taken into custody without incident. But we have several cases of Black people who are unarmed who are being murdered.
And you're right.
Murdered.
And I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
Just like the individual that shot and killed the people, I believe in South Carolina at the church.
Right.
The police took him to get something to eat.
Right.
Before he went to, I'm not disagreeing with you, and anybody who knows the facts, I don't see how they could disagree with the premise as to what you're saying. I'm just giving you examples, these few examples that we're naming. Some of the people could have still be alive today if they did X, Y, and Z. Now, what you're saying is they shouldn't have to do X, Y, and Z. They should be treated just like if it was Joe Blow, the white guy, and Joe Blow, the Black guy, should be treated the same. And sometimes
that is what I'm saying.
And sometimes they're not. And sometimes they're not. And so my argument is, because we have racism, because we have stereotypes, because we have all the other foolishness that goes on with a sin-filled society, I'm telling Black people, do what you have to do to stay alive, and then let's deal with whatever comes after that.
But the issue is,
okay, sorry. I just because you are a sergeant, I just want to know, like, is there something more specific that you tell your sons, your nephews, your family members when it comes to how to stay alive in a situation? Is there something more specific?
Just when the police stop them, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. What did I do? Don't get confrontational, and you go that route. That's the way you deal with it. Instead of the police stopping you and why the you stopping me, all y'all and you don't respond like that.
Okay. Okay.
You let the
Yes.
police and
Mhm.
And I would say
go
that
ahead.
there's several incidents where it's been caught on camera, recorded, documented, where no one was cussing anyone out, no one had a
Mhm.
weapon, no one was acting disrespectfully. Philando Castile was murdered. He had nothing. He asked the officer for permission to go into his glove compartment. We have I mean, just several cases. Tamir Rice was playing in a park with a toy gun. He was murdered. He was 12. So to say that just act right and you won't have these interactions, I think that's a falsehood.
No, I didn't say you won't
Well,
have
yeah,
them.
I
You
don't think he
minimize.
said that.
You
He's
you
saying what he would
minimize.
tell his sons, not to be cooperative, to be respectful. That's what he's
And,
saying in
and
general.
so the
So
question the question I would have for you to, other than the fact that Black people should be treated the same as you would treat white people, Hispanic
mhm,
people, Asian people, and so forth,
mhm,
that's a
mhm.
given. But with society as we have right now, how do you want law enforcement to respond? How do you want um, Black people who are on the other side of the law? How do you want them to respond? Because we can sit here and you can say, well, Black people should be treated the same as white people. And we'll say, okay, everybody will raise their hand. We'll agree with that. But with the system that we have in place and the inner cities set up the way they are, you tell me, how do you want us to police? Because I tell you what we're doing now. We take a second, we take a step back, and instead of running down that alley really quick to try to apprehend someone because of all the changes that are taking place, we take a step back, but homicides are up, shootings are up. These young Black people, these are the ones, when I stand over them, I look at them and say, that person could have been a teacher. That person could have been this, that, and the other. And it just takes a toll year after year after year, just seeing these young men lying in the alley with blood coming from their heads.
Well, I think that's why we brought up the whole defunding the police. It's not about totally removing all funding from the police departments. It's about reallocating those funds to different services because the communities do need services. The communities you're talking about, they do need mental health services. They do need just better education, better schools. I mean, there's so many things that need to be reallocated to different services to help those people. We are not a lost people. And
No,
I
we're
refuse
not.
to accept that. I refuse to accept that. We are not
Mhm.
animals. We don't deserve to be treated like that. But we do need help and assistance in certain communities. And that's what people are asking for.
So
And
would
I agree
anyone
with you,
else go
but
ahead? I'm
that's
sorry.
not but that's not something that the police can control or do in
Exactly.
and
That's
of
why we're
itself.
asking for them to be defunded.
Say that one more time.
I said exactly. That is why we're asking for the police departments to be defunded.
You better be careful what you ask for, because I don't know where you live, but I'm sure it's a nice neighborhood and you all are attorneys and you're educated and you're doing well for yourselves and God bless you. But there are people out there, whether they be white, Black, Hispanic, or other, believe you me, that will do things to you and your family that you can't imagine. So be careful when you say this, defund the police, because you say mental health, we need to defund the police and they shouldn't respond to mental health crisis.
It's a reallocation of funds. It's not
Okay.
defunding the departments. It's a
So
reallocation of
not
funds.
too long ago at work, and I'm gonna give you a real life example that happened recently. A guy has mental problems and he wasn't on his medication. And it's like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And thank God it was at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, because it wasn't a whole lot of people out. But he has no clothes on. I mean, zero clothes. And I believe he was 20 something, 30 something years old. And his mother's calling the police for help. Now we had to go out there and handcuff him and take him to the hospital. But it took several of us. And when you say you're going to send mental health professionals out there, what are they going to do in a situation like that? It's not like these people, when they're going through a crisis, that you can just sit there and say, Mr. Johnson, I'm such and such, and I'm here to help you, and I want to take you to the hospital and get you. It doesn't work like that. And we're more than happy not to have those calls because, see, at that particular time, what I have to worry about, I'm the ranking supervisor on the scene. If he falls on the ground while we're trying to handcuff him and his head is busted wide open, or God forbid he died, then I'm the one that they're going to blame first and foremost. But at the same time, we can't leave him out on the streets like that. And the mother is crying out for help. So,
do you have health training? Are you?
Yes, we have training, and we go through the process of. But when the person is agitated and combative, there's only so much talking you can do. There's only so much reasoning you can do. You, at some point in time, you have to go hands-on, and that doesn't mean you beat people or you shoot people or your intent is to injure people. But I tell you what, I would invite each of you on the panel, and I believe it's Miss Johnson who really she got to me earlier because she don't like the police. I'm joking. I'm trying to make peace with you. I invite you to come ride along, any of you to come ride along with me for 2, 3, 4 hours. And so you can see the day-to-day activities. And I guarantee you one thing, you may not change your whole perspective, but I tell you this much, you'll leave and you'll at least have some change of heart. I guarantee it. Everyone who's ridden with me has.
So I don't need to go along with you on a ride to know that these things happen, because I'm in the trenches inside of the courtroom and I get to see the evidence in cases. And so I don't need to get in.
That's a safe environment. When you're inside the courtroom, you're in a controlled environment.
I don't get paid to go on a ride along. First and
when you're
foremost,
on the streets,
so
you see how things happen.
But what I would say, as far as the mental health, that there is a crisis. Like, you guys are receiving training, right? But
yes.
But I think what the people are asking for, what we're asking for, is if there is a mental health unit, a specialization unit that responds to these type calls on a regular, and they have law enforcement training. So we're not talking about taking funding from. I wouldn't dare say defund the police. Like, we're not trying to minimize, not me personally, okay? So I wouldn't minimize the need for law enforcement, because there is a need for law enforcement. But I would also encourage law enforcement to act in a way and to treat us like other people are treated. Like, that's what we really want. And we want to be treated like Dylan Roof. You know, if my kid kills somebody, goes into church, take him. Yeah, he's hungry, you know, and so that's what's happening. That's what's happening. You know, he's on it because it's a build-up, right? The theme is that I'm hungry, and so my body is not functioning right? So the storyline starts at the beginning, and so the law enforcement that responds in a way such as they did with Dylan Roof, start the thing. He's hungry. His body is not functioning. His mind ain't functioning right. So the storyline goes, and I'm on the other side, right? I'm the one that's gonna shoot that line to the jury. I'm the person that's gonna say Dylan Roof was sick. He was hungry. That's why they took him to get something to eat, you know. And so so he's not functioning right in his mind. And here's your mental health line, and let's go feed that, you know. But let's get that going right away. I'm gonna throw that out there right away, right? We don't get the benefit of that.
Well, you do get the benefit of that.
Not only that, okay? I just had another client who is a Mexican client say to me the other day about this county that I live in, that he doesn't like to come to this county because the Black officers don't treat them right.
Okay.
And that's the same thing. He wants the same treatment that white people get. He wants the same treatment that Black people are asking for in other places, right? Because our county is run by Black people, right? And so it's safer than Black people feel safer in this particular county than the neighboring county, right? And so everybody we just want the same benefit. I want my kid to make it home just like you want your kid to make it home. I can't keep him safe if he walks out of my door, right? I just don't, and that's a hard pill to swallow as a mother. And it's hard for him to live as a young Black man and be able to just be a kid, be a young Black man, be a college kid that's not afraid of civil war. Like he really thinks that we're about to have a civil war, and he thinks that he should arm himself because why? It's better to be caught with a gun than to be caught without one, right? And that goes for the Black person that may or any criminal. We're not just cast criminals being Black, because I've represented Black, white, Mexican, it does not matter, right? I'm a criminal defense lawyer, so I'm not looking at the race of the person, but I am going to watch and see how it affects and matriculates through the court system. And so all we're doing, it's not just at the front end when on the street with law enforcement. It's throughout the whole thing. So you have to watch who you elect, right? So as a people, we got to be able to meet our own needs, right? That's what we really got to meet our own needs. We got to help our own people, right? We have to identify the problems that we have as a people. There is a food shortage. It is hard to act right when you're hungry, right? So if you're in a food desert and you don't have proper food to eat, what are you going to do?
Right.
You could go to the grocery store probably and eat some grapes or something, right? Like that's what I would start with, the grapes, right? And then I'd move on to a loaf of bread. I mean, you know, I'm being silly, but not really.
Right.
If I go in and I'm caught stealing because I'm hungry, then I have an interaction with a law enforcement officer who does not value my life at all, right? Just simply on the color of my skin. My life is not valued because of that. And then the interaction goes just like it did with George Floyd. Why? Because I stole some grapes. Because I was hungry. Meet my needs. What are the needs of our community? And how can we meet those needs for the people, right? So that we don't have to play into the hands of the system that ain't so just. The truth is that justice is hard found in the justice system.
And I appreciate your comments, Mr. Sergeant Smith. But I mean, it's concerning. I don't think that the onus falls back on the public, and the public is the public, regardless of their color. So to say that, you know, Black people need to get it together or Black people need to,
you didn't hear me say that. You didn't hear me say that.
You did make some.
I said I want Black people to love each other and for us to come together as a people. That's what my argument is. So you never heard me say get it together. And the other thing that I would add, not to cut you off, but I want to make sure you all understand this. If someone calls the police and it's a Black person who's in harm's way or there's the criminal element, when this one comes, the Black person is going to be treated like the white person, the Asian person, or anyone else. And that much I can control. But that's only because I had two loving parents who taught me about the love of Jesus and so forth. And so therefore I try to go out of my way because I know what it's like. I understand. I've been stopped by the police before I was a police. And I understand, and I can see now on the other side the mentality of police. And so until it goes bad because of their decision, I'm going to do everything I can, everything I can to treat that person as if they were a family member.
Sergeant, can you walk us through, because I know that you did not originally start out to become law enforcement. You were looking to become and go into the medical field. What were the reasons that brought you to your decision as a career in law enforcement?
After my sophomore year at Oakwood, I attended Meharry Medical School for a summer program for undergrads looking to go into the medical profession.
Okay.
And I was kind of following my older sister, who was a dentist. But after the program, I thought to myself, I don't really want to go into medicine. I didn't want to change my major. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I prayed real hard. I took the Myers-Briggs personality test. law enforcement and military came up. So obviously it was a mistake. So I took it again. Law enforcement and military came up again. So this time I went to, it wasn't Myers-Briggs, I went to a Christian organization, not Seventh-day Adventist, but and they offered a similar test. And so for whatever reason, I don't know, I prayed real hard. I even tried to change answers so it wouldn't be law enforcement and military. But law enforcement and military came up again, and I said, God, it's your will. And so here I am 27 years later.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would assume that at the core of that is to do good and to help people and to still be of service, just maybe not from a medical standpoint, but to be of service.
Absolutely. And like the two young ladies, the two attorneys on here, outside of Devonna, that I don't know. So one thing, when I told you I take people on ride-alongs, I've taken them to the white community, and there may be 4 or 5 guys, teenagers or whatever, hanging on the corner or wherever they are, and I'll pull up. And the white kids will say, "Hey, officer, how you doing?" Or whatever, "How's your day?" or what. And then I'll drive into the hood, and it'll be 4 or 5 black guys, and I'll pull up, and they don't say one word. They just look at me, and then I'll say, "Guys," and I know why they do that.
Right.
But I have to play stupid for a little bit. I roll the window down, and I said, "Nobody's saying what's up, guys? How you guys doing?" And they just kind of nod. I said, "Why when the police come by? Why when I come by, you guys don't say, what's up or how you doing or blah?" They say, "Because sometimes some of your people roll up and they put us on the ground, or they do this or they do that." And so I understand. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. That your points aren't valid.
Right.
But one point that I hear that you're saying, and I agree with, is that black people should be, whether it's a criminal element or a legal a person who just ran a stop sign, they should be treated the same as everyone else.
Absolutely.
And I agree with you 100%. And so therefore, that's why I keep saying this. This one right here is going to do that, and to the best of my ability. But I also try to talk to the people. Say that again.
What we're asking, though, is that you hold your counterparts, your colleagues, accountable for failing to do that. Call a dirty cop dirty when they are dirty. You know what I'm saying?
When cops are dirty,
making the report to internal affairs or your professional, whatever it is, right? Internal affairs, where you report wrongdoing by officers that you see. And if it happens, have it addressed. When it goes and it's swept under the rug, or when the laws are such that even if you do something, right, that it's hard for me as an attorney to have you held accountable because the laws are in your favor, right? Because you have qualified immunity, and we don't get to just get to y'all to hold you accountable, right? The laws are not. Because you are in a job that may require force. But when you use excessive force, you should be held accountable.
Okay, I agree with you, but this is one thing that you think that when a cop acts out or an officer does something bad, that the police just say, "Oh," and turn the other way. Everyone heard the phrase, "birds of a feather flock together." So when you have dirty cops, they don't intermingle with I guess the regular cops, for lack of a better term. You get 2 or 3 together and they kind of hang out and they go after work and they drink a little bit or go talk or whatever. We had like 7, 8 officers called GTTF in Baltimore City who went to prison for robbing drug dealers and robbing people and doing this sort of thing. But I knew 2 of the guys, had no idea that they were dirty. They worked in a different precinct, a different area, but when they get together to do that sort of thing, they don't do it in front of someone that they are not in cahoots with, for the most part.
But that's not what we're talking about. And I think, like I said, there's just been too many instances where officers have been, they stand by and either watch or partake in criminal activity that's being conducted by other police officers. And then where the reports are covered, or there's lies, there's cover-ups, things of that nature. And that has come out. And I think that's part of the concern and the mistrust that some people in the community have with police officers. And also, I mean, no one on the corner owes you a hello or a what's up. They're minding their business, and they can mind their business and not say hello. But also, if they've been mistreated or seen other people be mistreated, that's going to make them less likely to want to engage with law enforcement. There are plenty of people who run from police officers who have done nothing. They just run because they're terrified of having those interactions. And that happened before George Floyd, because those things have persisted within the system. And the system, there is a systemic problem that I think we all are here today to try to discuss and try to come to a solution or something that we can do to help.
Well, the reason why I brought up, I said hello to them, say hello to them on the corner. And you're right, they don't have to say hello, but it's trying to build relationships with people in the community who look like me. So that's part of the point that I'm making.
Right. I was going to say that you can bridge the gap between the police department and the community by having people to police the community and be engaged in other activities, right? Versus just your only interaction with the community is when you pull up to make a stop or something, you know, or kick in a door to make a bust, or, you know, if you are in Baltimore, you know, of course they don't want to talk to the police. Like, you know, it's a high crime area, more likely, that you were referencing, right? And so, but you can bridge the gap between police, assign officers that have the same complexion as me, right? Other things that can be done is not just the people, if you live in the community, so recruit police officers that live in the community. Start when they're young, develop people such that they aren't making missteps so that they can go into law enforcement. And that way you have somebody that's in the community who is of the community. And so your police officers live with the people that they are policing.
Community programs, so you're not rolling up on people in a police car, full gear and all of that. That's intimidating to a lot of people. If you're out in the park or something, that's less intimidating to people. A picnic or a school drive, things like that. I mean, I think that's a less intimidating situation versus other interactions that people may have.
So I think that you guys are definitely, our time is getting short, but you have definitely touched on a few of our other questions, which we were kind of going to end with. You know, what can we do to ensure positive changes in the community? And I think Sergeant Smith just talked about how he, you know, tries to engage the young man that he may see on the street corner, whether in the white neighborhood or the Black neighborhood. And then the additional suggestions that were given by Attorney Wills and Attorney Johnson as well. I certainly think those are some good takeaways. We certainly have not tapped into everything we wanted to tap in tonight. This has been a great conversation, and I think we might need to do a part 2.
Absolutely. But for now, in terms of any closing thoughts that you guys might have, we'll go around the room and we'll start with you, Attorney Wills.
Just closing thoughts. At the end of the day, I mean, what happened with George Floyd, and just getting back on the message of today, what happened was tragic. I think it did bring a lot of awareness. I think it gave or empowered a lot of people to speak up and speak out with all the riots, and not just that, not riots, protests, and just the demonstrations that people put on and put out, and it resonated beyond the Black community. And I think it empowered other people in other communities as well to say, this is not right, and let me check my privilege. Let me see where maybe there are some deficiencies where I work, or with my friends. Let me check on them. This has been a very hard year for all of us. But I think even though it was a very, very sad event, it definitely just brought that to the forefront. and opened up a lot of conversations that I think a lot of people were uncomfortable with having. So I'm glad to be here today and have this conversation with all of you.
Great, thank you. And Attorney Johnson?
I would just close in saying that we could do more in our communities. I think America needs to acknowledge its dark history of racism. It perpetuates and feeds through everything that every system that we have that touches our lives. We can invest in education. We can rewrite the curriculum such that it reflects what the true history of our country is, and address the racism and how Black people are not treated fairly, and get some equity such that we deal with the problems of America, the problems in our criminal justice system. Pull our resources together such that we can feed our people, that we can get adequate health care, that we can get the right mental health care that is needed. There's so much wrong that I'm not going to say we're never going to be able to fix it, but we've got to really get to the core of the root of the problems, right, in order to make change stay. You know what I'm saying? To make a change that sticks around. And so I certainly am not against police, but I also am not pro-police. You pegged me right. You did, and so if I didn't ride along with you, you'd learn a little bit more about me, and you would understand why I don't really like the police. And that's a true statement. It's okay. I have friends that are police officers, but yeah, if I did a ride, I should just take you on a ride along, and then you might see it from a different lens.
Right.
That's a great idea.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Sergeant Smith?
Well, I'm in law enforcement and I'm Black, so it doesn't discount anyone else's opinion, and I think your opinions are valid and they're right and they are fair.
Right.
But the system as a whole is somehow broken, and unfortunately, far too often, Blacks are at the bottom looking up.
Right.
I do agree with my two favorite attorneys now that yes, Blacks should be treated the same as whites or others.
Right.
But all I can say is that through 27 years, and my time is coming to an end because it's time for me to retire soon. But I have tried to do that. And I don't know. I think more discussions are needed, but we also I would like to just see people, and I know it's different, Attorney Wills, I know it's different. I would just like to see people come out and protest a little more when all the violence takes place in the inner cities that have nothing to do with the police. It's two different things. I agree with you. Absolutely. But I just get tired of seeing young Black men just their lives wasted.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Devonna. Thank you, Lala, for having me. And
absolutely. And this is the reason that we're having these conversations. And I'm sure that some people who joined the conversation are probably confused, right? Because a lot of times when we have these types of sessions, everyone is of the like mind. Everyone is in agreement. I agree with what you just said. I agree with what you said. And I think that what is important is that we were able to discuss our disagreements in a way that brought enlightenment to each of us. And we were able to hear and listen to the side that maybe we would not necessarily, hear otherwise. So this is our first conversation as a result of Healthy Heart Nation. You all are a member of our ambassador communities, and we're so grateful to have you here. We are committed to, limiting and removing the disparities in the Black community. And it is going to take more conversations like this, along with actionable steps, consistency in our community, and being able to provide examples to our community, young people, just pulling together all of our resources to address these issues and challenges, one issue and challenge at a time, collectively, individually, but the point is consistently. And so, we appreciate you guys being a part of this conversation. We appreciate all of you who have had the opportunity to listen. We ask that you share it. We ask that you, continue to move these conversations forward, because the work is just beginning. Ivana?
Yes, I'm certainly in agreement. I'm so excited that we were able to have this panel discussion this evening. Like I said, I do think the conversation needs to continue. We don't want this to just stop here. We need to continue the conversation. I have 2 Black sons, 2 Black daughters, and I have these conversations with them, my nieces, my nephews, and it's just very important for us to continue the discussions. I think that there was a meme going around or something that said, guilty people should live too. So for me, that sums up the entire George Floyd conversation, whether guilty or innocent. As was said earlier, everyone deserves to be able to have their day in court, to live to see that moment and have that moment. So I'm glad we've started the discussion, and I hope that we will continue it.
Thank you all for joining us. Please visit us at Healthy Heart Nation, myhhn.org, for more information as well as programming for our next sessions going forward. And we thank you all for your time and your commitment tonight.
Thank you.